right now. Now we're live. So, give it a few minutes. In case you couldn't hear me, we'll give it a few minutes. Yeah.
Like that microphone.
Oh, dude, the microphone. I'm not that dude. I don't really care as much. You were obviously more so that dude than I am. But I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
This one made me that dude. Like, just to hear the difference. When I go to edit stuff now and I hear it, vastly different than what it was.
Yep.
Which is weird because right now, as we're talking, I don't really hear the difference. But when I listen to it play back, it's like, whoa, that is
really hear it, right?
Vastly different. Yes, it is something to behold.
It's horrible.
But yeah, we're able to get on today.
Yeah, what was up with yesterday? What was that about?
With what? Facebook, you mean? Yeah, like everything was down. Facebook, WhatsApp, all that stuff. I mean, I'll mention it when we start.
Oh, okay. Something going on, I guess.
Yeah, who knows? Oy vey, man. It's good times.
Yep.
What time is it now? I'll give it, I don't know, 2-3 minutes maybe, a couple minutes, if that. Just waiting to see if anybody pops in. I know it's like a weird time for us now since we're a little bit late, but...
Oh.
Plus, I think everybody is also still reeling from the Facebook being down, so I think maybe people aren't checking it the way they thought. Oh, Richard just came on and says, surging servers. I don't even know what that means.
Oh, yeah.
That is beyond my pay grade, my friend. I do not know what that means. Having said that, okay, yeah, is it like I'm not registering anybody? I know obviously people are watching at the moment, but I'm not registering. It's not showing up on my thing to show that people are, whatchamacallit. Oh, Richard, I fixed it. There was like Facebook was being all wonky, man, and it wouldn't let me change my autocorrect for some reason. Like it showed up on my screen like it was correct, but when it posted the incorrect version. So I went back in and fixed it. But it was basically the question that we're asking, and we're not live yet, by the way. So the question that we were asking that's pertinent to today's topic is essentially, if you have somebody who's been raised kind of in a loving, compassionate environment, are they compatible, or in how so or how not so, to somebody who's been raised in a more survival type environment? That is the overall question, and I'm going to repeat that again once we go live here in a minute for the video purposes. But
we are live, but
this isn't the actual show. Correct.
Yeah.
This is the pre-show.
Right. This is the
for
show
what that's
before
worth.
The show.
The show before the show. Welcome. Anyways, well, no, let's just go ahead and get started, man. Let's go ahead and just roll. Let's roll that beautiful bean footage.
How do you do it?
All right. Let me go there. Let me find this video. There it is. I think that's it. Yeah, okay. Here we go. Boom. That's my sound effect. That's right. Anyways, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Dope and Dharma. I, of course, am the Dharma Guy, joined with, as always, the Dope Doctor, and you are currently checking us out on the Dharma Time Hour, which is where we talk about spiritual and philosophical type things that are affecting us in our lives and whatnot. Good day. Good to be on, man. It's good to be on. It was what yesterday was crazy for everybody yesterday. So Facebook was completely down. Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram, I think they were all down. Facebook apparently is having some issues. Not at all related, I'm sure, to that lady that just whistleblowed on them, but we'll see. And then last night when we went to go to our local...
Nothing to see here.
Exactly. And then last night when we went to our in-town actual radio station... we were sitting out in a dark parking lot for a little bit before we realized that they had a power outage. So we had no show yesterday either. So nobody's gotten a chance to see our mediocre faces in a while.
Well, I got this weird tickling in my ear.
Yeah, somebody's whispering in your ear there.
Yeah.
Should I show you? Oh, God. Anyways, so if you're watching us live, you were probably watching us on Facebook.com/Dharma WPSN 99, and we thank you for that. Today is Tuesday, October 5th, I think it is. It's hot outside as usual, but it looks like some overcast, so it's going to be raining here a little bit. And if you were actually on our Facebook page, you might have noticed a slight change. We are rebranding slightly.
Yeah.
We are leaning more into our audience, I guess, and what they're looking for. And so you might have heard, if you've been listening to us for a while, we call ourselves Dope and Dharma now, as opposed to just the Couch Live or Dharma Time, things of that nature. Mainly because, we're multifaceted, believe it or not. And so we have opinions outside of just the persona of the Dope Doctor and Dharma Guy. And it seems that people would like to hear what we have to say about a multitude of topics. So we're dipping into Dope and Dharma now. So we're just like a variety type show where we talk about multiple different things. We're still going to keep our timelines of Tuesdays and Fridays being Dharma Time and the Couch Live, respectively. And but we're also going to add in some Dope and Dharma. That's right. At Fridays we haven't officially we haven't done that, but it seems like that's where we're heading. So it seems like on Fridays we're going to just straight up do Dope and Dharma and move the Couch Live to Mondays on the local show. So I guess
we already go to the radio station on Mondays anyway.
Yeah. So, anyways. All that said and done, you can follow us on social media. He is at the Dope Doctor. I am at the Dharma Guy. And as of like a couple hours ago on Instagram, we together collectively are at Dope in Dharma. That's DOPENDHARMA. So, anyways,
You did. Looks good.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was so hard. I put a lot of work into that.
It only took you a month, and you did it in 2 seconds.
I'm gonna leave that one alone. Anyways. So let's get started, man. So today's show. Once again, I often times will see, things posted on social media that gives me some ideas on what we can talk about. Trying to get an idea as to what y'all would like to hear. And one of the things that I've seen posted quite a few times is the compatibility stuff about, just the approaches to things and how people kind of process information, how they respond, different baggage, things of that nature. And so there's one post in particular which I saw that kind of like, all right, that's it. That's our next show. And the question that this person posed is, can somebody, or, is somebody who is raised in like a loving, compassionate, caring environment think, I don't know, the Andy Griffith Show or something, like Opie Taylor's and stuff. Think Leave It to Beaver. Can somebody raised in that environment, are they compatible with somebody raised in a more survival environment? Meaning, grew up kind of rough. Maybe they saw violence early on. Maybe, there was just a lot of outstanding circumstances in the home that made things difficult as a child. Are those two people compatible? Which obviously then begs the question, different, collaborations, I guess, or different mixes of that, right? I think obviously we can all agree that the optimal one would be probably two people coming from a loving, compassionate home together, and that seems, anyways, on face value to be the easiest one. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. We'll talk about that. But then you also have two people coming from a survivalistic kind of mentality coming together, and that appears on face value to maybe be the most difficult. Who knows? But anyways, that is the question that was posed, and obviously we have opinions. So, do you want to jump right in there and have anything to say right off the bat, Mr. Dope Doctor?
That could be problematic. That can get us in trouble.
What's that?
Because our mothers actually watch this show.
But yet our wives don't. And so they're the ones where we're maybe compatible with or not compatible.
Okay. I was wondering whether, if you and I say we did not come from a loving home, which we both did, then...
There was love there, yes.
There was love. There's love there. Then, they would be like, what do you mean there was no love in our home? You know what I mean? It was like, no, there was love in our home.
Well, see, that's the thing is we can gotta, I guess, preface this all by saying loving environment or that kind of environment. I think what we're implying is the standard that most of us look to as what we would like. Like the loving mom and a loving dad staying together throughout the entire lifetime of the child, family vacations and helping with home, just this Leave It to Beaver type of like family that typically is hard to find in today's world, versus the other lifestyle, which there's still love there, but there's obstacles and difficulties and potential trauma to be overcome. Like if you're a witness to violence, or even the splitting up of parents has a certain amount of trauma associated with it. And, just because it does impact us. And I think that's the thing that I think that's the overarching theme of today's show is things that happen to us as kids does impact our lives. Not necessarily for better or for worse. It impacts us. And I think when it turns to for worse is when we ignore that fact. When we want to pretend like it didn't bother us and I don't have any little quirks that I need to work on. Yeah, you do. We all do. So even the individuals who came from a loving family is going to have their own little traumas that they perceive that they need to work on. But like I said, I think where you get in trouble is when you approach it as in, I'm good. No matter what I went through, I'm fine. I already dealt with all that. I think we can all underestimate the impact some of those experiences have on our future decision making.
Right.
So
I used to joke a lot that, just because I put myself in a lot of conflict and I lived a life of conflict by going out there and being kind of crazy.
Sure.
And then Dana came from, Clearwater, blonde, blue-eyed.
Yeah.
Girl that was like, la, 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 the world is full of rainbows and unicorns. And I'm like, no, it's not. I mean, that was difficult initially.
Yeah.
Just to be able to feel worthy of that, and then her to be able to understand just how crazy can be.
Yeah.
I think she was in. I think that's kind of what attracted her to it, though, man. It was like, that's so television or so movie-ish.
Yeah.
And it was like, yeah, well, in the movies we always die, though.
Right.
So,
well, even in our own.
Into the sunset with the good-looking woman.
Yeah. Well, even in our own situations, this is we're you and I are perfect examples of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Not even our own lives growing up. I'm talking about right now. I look at the life that you've provided for your children versus the life that I'm able to provide for mine. Right off the bat, you and Dana are still together. Like you and Dana have been together their entire lives. And so now your children are in adulthood not knowing the pain and trauma that comes with parents separating in two homes and things of that nature. That doesn't mean that I love my children any less than you do. It just means, there's certain difficulties that they've encountered that yours haven't. And so I think that's kind of what I'm talking about. And Richard asked a question. He said, does the gender of said raising play a factor? I don't know. I think that's part of our question. I think we're trying to tap into all of that and have some thoughts, open discussion here. So I guess I think the easiest way to do this is just, let's start going down some what we feel to be characteristics, right? What some of that baggage is, I guess.
Well, we both know that you could definitely bring in baggage into a relationship.
Sure.
If it's not dealt with and it's untreated, then a person that really doesn't have any desire to even deal with it because it's not what they're used to, it's not their norm.
Right.
It's a problem for them. You know what I mean? Like, both of us are married people, so both of us have a different norm coming into the relationship than the other person, and I think that's at the start of all this, that's what we're talking about. Like, if you come into it with a very different norm, but if your norm is chaos and your norm is cold and your norm is you're not affectionate, the love is not as overt and overbearing, then I think about like the Meet the Fockers.
Yeah.
Where where like they're huggy feely, and the dad was very kissy, and then the other one was like a little bit more standoffish.
Sure.
That's what I think about when you mention this.
Yeah. I mean that's par for the course, man. Like I know that, like for instance, I didn't really have a genuine and loving father my entire life. It just didn't happen. He was only in my life for I think 5 years. And those 5 years were not loving and compassionate and wonderful. I mean, they were scenes and experiences that no kid should ever have to live. Nobody should have to live through. And so when I watch these movies of people or when I hear you talk about your dad and how great it was and how you look up to him, I have no clue what that feels like. And it's not lost on me that has an impact. You know what I mean? Like that impact in my life growing up. Now I don't know if it's causation, but I will say there's a correlation in the sense of not having that father figure in my life absolutely made it more difficult in certain areas.
Yeah.
I definitely struggled with things that I might not have struggled with had I had that father figure in place. Now, once again, I don't know if that's causation or correlation. Who knows? I would argue causation, but that would then imply that everybody who grew up without a dad went through the same struggles, and I don't know that.
Right.
So, but that's an example, right? So for me, the way that played out, kind of in a romantic sense, right? Because that's what we're talking about when we say compatibility. I think that's really what we're referring to is relationships, and I think the way that played out was I had no clue what a healthy relationship looked like between a man and a woman. I just didn't know. I didn't know the way a man was supposed. Like, what was it last night? Last night when you were on the phone, I got home early, and as I'm welcomed into the house, the first words were like, "Hey, can you go run an errand for me?" And I did, and that errand took like an hour to go get something. It was ridiculous, but I happily did it. It was whatever. I did it. I joked with her. I messed with her a little bit, but it was all in good fun. And so for me, that's the role that a husband is supposed to play. That's my wife. Right. I've committed to her. She needs me to go get something for her. It's an inconvenience for me, but it is what it is. That's my wife, so I'm going to go get it. And so for me, I'm passing that kind of methodology down to my son and showing him what it looks like to try to treat and respect your wife and things of that nature. But I never had that example. I didn't know what it was supposed to be like. I had to learn that. And thankfully, I've been blessed to have friends of mine around that have long-term relationships and have shown me that I look up and respect to them, and they're doing these things. So okay, those can coincide with one another. Right. I never fell into that trap of being like a womanizing, disrespectful like prick, basically. Not to say I didn't have my womanizing ways when I was younger, but
right.
So, but yeah, I mean that's an example of what I mean.
Right. Well, and I've joked a lot of times that my dad, God, man, he would just. It used to drive me nuts as a little kid. I got to be honest, and I'm talking as a little kid, not as a teenager. As a little kid, because I was so angry. You know what I mean? And unjustifiably, but to me, I felt justified.
Sure.
And so when he would be so overbearingly nice to my mother, and she would, just be thirsty, and he would like run to the store to get her a drink. I didn't understand that stuff.
Right.
I didn't want to understand that. I wanted him to come home and understand that. Look, those two have a plan, and they're anti-Louis. Right. My mother and my brother, they have this bond, and me, you, Dad, me, you have a bond. So, right. But he would come home and he'd be like Mr. Romantic and loving, and so when I saw that some other men weren't that way, maybe men more like your father, I was thinking, see, that's what a guy's supposed to be like. So I thought guys like your dad were actually what men were supposed to be like, and I thought my dad was very unusual because he was. Right. My dad was emotionally available. My dad was loving. My dad was caring. My dad would talk to you. Now, he did call me stupid idiot on a regular basis. But even when my dad calls you stupid idiot, it's loving.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's different. So my point is that the way I saw him treat my mother was not the way I saw other men treat women.
Right.
So I had a very good role model so that when I got married, even though I didn't really know how to be a boyfriend or a husband and all that, because I was still very rough around the edges and I never had one before her, I at least had my dad in the back of my head. And so all I had to do was copy that behavior. And I like it,
Right.
So like if Dana needs anything, I do the same thing that you did. I would get in the car and just go do it. Right. Now, it was funny that you did it because you had no role model to show you that that's how a man is supposed to be. So right. I don't know where you got it. I don't know where you even came out with love, because I've tried to hug your mom. Your mom doesn't even want to hug. She always makes
no.
Like I'm a very touchy-feely, tactile person. I like to hug. I like to kiss. I'm very, very that way. And so knowing that your dad wasn't around, and then your mom doesn't even like hugs, I have no idea how you.
I got to be honest with you. That was part of my growth that I had to do, and that's kind of why this particular topic is very interesting to me, because of that. Like my, for me, I think what changed it was my moment. Right when I looked around, I was like, "Dude, something's got to be different," and that's what turned me to spirituality. And then so for me, spirituality just made sense intellectually, and so I just started doing it. And then it kind of just took over from there, right? Because prior to me being introduced to spirituality and going down that path, yeah, man, I wasn't very affectionate. I wasn't very compassionate. I think there's a word that I'm going to say right now that I think is probably, in my opinion, anyways, one of the biggest differentiating factors between being raised with love and being raised in the survival world, and that is empathy. When you come from a survivalistic kind of a background, empathy is a very difficult thing to do. And I say that because like there's a few reasons for that. Number one, you didn't feel like a lot of people were empathetic towards you, so you didn't have anybody to model that. Whether they were or weren't, it doesn't matter. And your perspective, they weren't. And then the other thing is and I can speak for my own self, empathy early on was hard for me because I just didn't have time. I didn't care. I'm too busy trying to survive here, man. Like I got no time to worry about what your feelings are and what you're going through. I'm trying to make it through the day right now. Gotcha. And so when you have that mindset of being survival, everything that you do revolves around survival, and being empathetic towards other people has nothing to do with your survivability. Right? Matter of fact, it might be worse because you're too busy being emotional or thinking about this or feeling about this that you're getting taken advantage of, right? And in a survivalistic kind of a mentality, the main thing is defense. And when you're trying to be defensive, you're putting up walls and you're being less vulnerable. Whereas empathy typically revolves around being vulnerable and recognizing the vulnerability in others. And so those two things are not compatible, those two mentalities. And so I think that's to me is where people butt heads a lot, right? If you come from if it's two survivalistic individuals coming together, that could be a recipe for disaster, right? Meaning they might tolerate one another and live, but it has there's a strong potential there for it to be very unfulfilling and very unloving, because neither one of them are really being receptive to the other's emotional state and their own feelings. Not purposely, but that's just their natural kind of reaction to things, unless they've done a lot of work. Whereas when you have two loving individuals, then it's kind of in their nature to be empathetic towards what the other one's feeling. And that is what makes a relationship work, is empathy towards the other one. Oh, look at that. See, Skylar came on and says the mic sounds so good. Thank you.
I don't even want to hear it, Skylar.
No, you say it again. Because he's stuck on that mic. But anyways.
I'm not using I should go upstairs. I set up the whole mic. Their mics are up there.
Well, that's right.
Up in the loft up there, but I'm not up there.
Richard did ask a question before you respond. He says, do you think I think he maybe mistyped that one, so I'll go on to the next one. Trinity, do you believe what little interaction you had with your father makes you better or worse as a father? Ooh, that's a good question that I don't know if I have a really good answer for that one, because I can see it both ways, right? There's an old adage, whatever, that you either become who you are in spite of your past or because of your past. Meaning, I saw violence, I saw disrespect, I saw just crap that could very easily turn me into the same, right? I could have just been jaded and been angry, and I was for a very long time. I was a very angry individual.
Well, that's the individual that Richard knew when you used to bully him in school.
Wow, we're not going there. But the other half of that, right, was I always, no matter how angry and pissed off I was, and jaded and just selfish and just kind of a prick to everybody, I always knew in the back of my head, first of all, I never wanted kids, but I knew that if I did have kids, I didn't want to be what my dad was, because I knew how it felt. I knew how it felt looking around thinking, I don't have a dad. Like on Father's Day, nobody showed up for me. And I remember how it felt. No matter how, like at the time, I didn't know how it felt, because at the time I was in denial. At the time, I was like, I don't care. Screw him. I don't give a shit. I hope he dies. But as I got older and I became more in touch with who I am and my feelings, I was hurting. There was a lot of pain that I was going through at that time, and I just didn't know what to do with it. And I had nobody in my life that could model, effective coping, basically. And so I was just doing what came naturally, what I felt. However, I always knew that if I did have kids, I didn't want to be him. And so I didn't have a role model to show me what to do, but I knew what not to do. And so I think that guided me. Like when I had my kids, like one of the first things I did when I found out I was going to have my daughter, So first, once I got off the initial, holy shit, I'm having a kid. One of the first things I did was I started saying I love you. Like I started saying to myself, like I knew I have to say those words. And those are not words that I said really. My mom and I kind of stopped saying I love you to one another. I don't know why. We just did years before that. That's just the kind of it's one of those like unwritten things between the two of us. We just know. We don't really have to say it. It's just that's what we have. However, I knew that my kids needed to hear that. I knew my little daughter needed to have her daddy say to her, I love you. And so it was so uncomfortable. And to me, that's part of what comes with a survivalistic kind of mentality, is that's a very vulnerable thing to say to somebody. You're opening yourself up, whether you intend to or not. And so it was hard, man. It was so hard for me to say those words. Wow. Yeah, it was. Because I just felt gross. I felt like, I don't know, I felt wrong somehow for saying it. But I knew I needed to do it. And so I just, every day, when even she couldn't even understand, she was like, a newborn, I was telling her all the time just to get comfortable with it. And so now, it doesn't bother me. Now I can say it to friends, I say it to family. I think I've told you before, like, it doesn't bother me. It's just, but it's something I had to teach myself. And I worked very hard to do that. So I guess, Richard, to answer your question, both, I think it made me worse. I think it made me worse in the sense of, in my adolescent years, I was angry and I took it out on everybody. And that unskillfulness just spilled out onto the world. But I also think it made me better because, looking back, like I know exactly what I don't want my kids to feel, and so I'm very motivated to counterbalance that. So I think, to answer your question, both. What do you think, man?
Well, when you said that I love you part, I mean, I remember watching television shows where the kids would no longer want their parents to hug them and stuff like. Dude, to this day, me and my brother will kiss each other on the cheek. Me and my father. Me and my mother, we're very touchy-feely. We hug, we kiss, we do that.
Right.
So when I heard people that they don't do that, it just never made sense to me. It's like, it almost felt, instead of looking at it as a kid and going like, they love each other differently, like when you just explained that, like, oh, they view it differently, but it doesn't mean they love each other any less. Right. I seriously thought they must not love each other.
Right.
Know what I mean? Because without that expression, I felt like, well, why wouldn't you do that expression? I would never be embarrassed to kiss my father, Right. And then I remember seeing somebody kiss their parent on the lips, and then I was like, well, now that's a little bit far. So it's weird how we all have this different thing you get raised with, and it's your normal, and that's okay. It's your normal.
Yeah. But
we all view someone else's normal and somehow take some sort of how would you say it? Inventory of it, right. and try to figure out, is that something better or worse or equal? I don't know. But going back to your original question about survival, I don't think I could be in a relationship with someone the way I'm in a relationship with Dana if Dana was from a survival household. In other words, if she had to constantly feel like a victim of the world or a victim of something, circumstance, and therefore always looking out for herself. And if she came from that and then into our household right now with my daughters, I think even if she didn't overtly act like that, that would be my go-to when I'd be angry. I think I would go to that. Right. Because I know that when we get angry with each other, we tend to look at their family as a whole, Sure. So it's real easy to say, you're acting just like your mother right now, you know what I mean? In my head, you know what I mean? Course. So I'll find a way to say that without it exploding. And so if she came from a survival household where there was no affection, no love, out for mine, got to go get yours before someone takes it from you. This world doesn't love you. This world is no, this world is a dog eat dog, so you better go out there and fend for your own. And I would struggle with that. I like the positivity a lot better than the negativity. You know what I mean? Even though there's some reality in that. I'm not saying there's not a reality in that.
Sure.
I just think that there's a, you have to put that in context.
Yeah. Well, so Richard made a comment that I think is very poignant, and I kind of agree with him on this one. He said, so Richard says he's from a survival kind of a raising, and his wife is a loving raising. He said literally a two-light town. So I think the inference there is, small town America, everybody knows everybody, just, hey, how you doing, neighbor, that kind of stuff. That's what I'm assuming.
For Otis's kids. Otis's kids probably didn't feel
they're always in jail. He says, I believe we have great compatibility because we have a balance. I know how to survive, and she understands how to nurture. So I believe compatibility is what we as individuals make of it, and it won't come without compromise and the willingness to see it from a different perspective. I kind of agree 100% on that one. My logic tells me that two loving individuals coming from a loving background is probably the most optimal. It probably comes with the least amount of obstacles to overcome. But God, I can make a strong case though for what he just said: a loving background and a survivalistic background, because that literally is the best of both worlds, right? Because as you pointed out, with the survivalistic mentality, there's some realism there. Like, you've been exposed to the dark side or the dirty side of the world, so you're fully aware of it and what it can do and how to overcome it. And to whereas, it can be said at times, if you come from, if it's even possible, a too much of a loving family, then sometimes you might have rose-colored glasses and you're unaware of the dirt that the world has to offer. That there's a dirty side to things, and maybe you're unsuspecting or whatever. I don't know. I would have still argued that it's probably better to have, but I can see how those two kind of balance it out a little bit. I can totally understand that. And like Skylar just said, yin and yang. Yeah, I can see the value in that. Having said that, I think we all have to admit, though, if we're honest, two loving backgrounds. Like I said, there's fewer obstacles to overcome. There's probably immediate empathy and there's understanding. And one can argue that what makes the world dirty is people thinking the world's dirty and responding to that thought. So, I mean, because I look at Dana as an example, and I know Dana. I love Dana. I think she's awesome, and everybody who knows her loves her. Do I really think the world would be better off or worse off if there weren't more of them out? No, of course not. I mean, if everybody in the world behaved and operated that way, we wouldn't have a dirty world. It just means it's awesome place. And so I'm not going to sit there and say that, no, we have to have the other side of that. Like, I can make a case for it.
At the beach.
Yeah.
Be at the beach.
Yeah.
Sipping lattes.
Yeah. But I know that, I just think that, that's a debate that we've always had, right? I mean, in this same debate, as parents who have come from various backgrounds, that's the approach we take with our kids, right? Like, I'm a firm believer that going through adversity creates confidence and creates a better, a better long-term outcome, right? Not because of data, not because of, I've gone to school for, 20 years. And no, my personal experience. I look back on my own life and I realize the things that I went through gave me a certain resolve that can't be taught. Like, it has to be earned. And I've gone through those things and I've faced them and I've overcome them. And that gives me my confidence in today's world to overcome those things. And so, of course, my thought process with my own kids is a little bit of adversity is going to be good for you. You need to learn how to overcome it. Having said that, go ahead.
No, you were about to say, having said that, what?
I would say, having said that, there's also some very real value of just coming from a really loving, empathetic, supportive environment as well.
Right. No, what I was going to say was, because I'm the provider in my home and I'm the one that goes out. Dana's a stay-at-home mom now, a stay-at-home. She's a retired woman now, I guess.
Right.
Our kids are grown and gone.
Right.
But, being who she is, I think that I need to be who I am. And so I'm glad I went out and I scrapped and I hustled and I did all that, because that's, to this day, that's my lifestyle, really, in a cleaner way, obviously, a lot cleaner way, on the opposite of that coin. But I'm the hunter. I go out and hunt every day, and I bring back the nutrients, and she takes care of the household. We're a very old-fashioned family in that sense. So for me, it worked out really good that I went through adversity early on. Maybe not for my family, but from where I put myself in those early years. So when I wanted to calm and in other words, I can escape to the rose-colored glasses. I can escape to the rainbow, yet we're not so that lovey-dovey, like when you say that, I just think of those people that you meet, that they're all, hi honey, and they're like kissing. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
we're not that. And
Right.
so our kids were able to see, my attitude mixed with Dana's attitude,
Sure.
mixed with some interesting arguments and discussions. And so there's reality for them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that they're, they go into the world with reality, yet they see two people that, regardless of how they argue and regardless of how they may communicate sometimes, they're not going anywhere. They're staying together. They're not going anywhere. And they both come from long-term relationships. Dana comes from a long-term relationship. I come from a long-term
Right.
relationship. You look at all of our cousins and our nieces and nephews, in I would say 90% of both sides of our families come from long-term relationships, 0 divorces.
Wow.
There's got to be something to that. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's weird. But when Dana and I actually map that out and say, wow, that's kind of odd, because in a time where 50% of the relationships end up in divorce, right?
Yeah.
Both of us come from very, very long-term relationships, and it extends in that family tree. It's not it's not straight up and down. It's straight up and down, and then out.
I think there's a caveat to all this too, right? In the sense of the survivalistic mindset, right? The caveat to that is if that individual does the work to skillfully handle some of the limitations that perspective gives, right? In other words, if that person coming from a survivalistic mindset sees everything as dog eat dog, I'm out for myself, the world is a messy place,
Right.
that is not conducive to a successful long-term relationship with a loving partner. It's just not. It's going to create a tremendous amount of conflict in your life. The other person's bound to feel underappreciated, disrespected, not loved, and that kind of stuff. And so I think that is the caveat, right? Like, I think there's a very real value in coming from that kind of an environment if you've done the work to fully understand your trauma, your pain, and work on it and overcome it. Because if you've done that, yes, I think it gives you an added edge and it gives you the benefit of both perspectives. Having said that, like I said, if you didn't, it's going to lead to more problems than it solves, I think. And so at the end of the day, even the survivalistic mindset is going to need some love to kind of balance it out. Not from the other person, but from yourself, right?
Yeah, I
like,
agree.
no matter how loving the other partner is, if you're not willing to receive that love yourself, if you're not willing to be vulnerable, if you're not willing to drop the survivalistic mindset long enough to feel valued and appreciated and feel safe, that relationship's not going to last very long. And if it does, it's going to be very volatile. Very. And I think that, and I think in our today's world, man, there's so many people that come from a survivalistic mindset and haven't done the work. We see it all the time, especially what we do, right? I mean, a lot of them go into that field, obviously. And once again, not everybody has gone through torture and horrible things, right? That's not necessarily what I'm talking about. When I say survivalistic mindset, what I'm saying is like, maybe you did come from divorce. Maybe you had, parents who weren't emotionally available, and there was some neglect there or something. Maybe there was some physical abuse there. Maybe there was, as Louie and I both did when we were in our adolescent years, we did some stuff we shouldn't have done that created an environment around us that we had to struggle. So it wasn't necessarily anything our parents did. It was also things that we put ourselves in. That's what I'm talking about, right? I'm not referring. So that versus the kid with the mom and the dad who love them very much, and they're together, and their parents are together, and they went to school, and they did things together, family vacations, they did homework nights, and all these other things. Those are two vastly different things, and that kid never participated in, the quote unquote darker side of life, and doesn't understand that mentality. Those are the two opposites that I'm talking about. Go ahead.
Yeah, you know what I'm real grateful for, though, Trinity, and so this can't go without saying.
Me? You're welcome, man.
No. What I have to say is that, obviously I have a story. I wouldn't be the dope doctor. I wouldn't do the couch live. I wouldn't be doing this kind of business if I didn't have a story. And it's not time for me to tell that story. But the point is that I'm very blessed that when all that was said and done, and I wanted to come home, that there was a home. What I'm glad is that I come from a family that when whatever I went through, but when I wanted that stability, they were there. They were there, open arms, nurturing, loving, together, and that they raised me with a great sense of family. And I needed that for as
Sure.
far gone as I was mentally and emotionally. I needed to know that there was a home there. And I think that allowed me to be a little crazy sometimes, because there was that safety net of I could always go back there. I never felt like that door would be closed. I never felt like it wasn't going to be there. I always knew I could go back there. And so
Mine wasn't.
I know.
My mom flat out told me, "You keep messing up, you're gone."
Dude, I could go back home. Mom, if you're watching, if you're listening, I can go back and live there now. A matter of fact, by the time I would by the time I would get there, that whole room would be altered for me.
Right.
There would be a room there with all my favorite things. She would already have bought Lay's potato chips and Tabasco sauce ready for me. The TV would go from a small little TV. Oh, Louis moving here. There'd be a bigger TV. Trust me, that would always be available. And so there's a safety net in family that I want to give to my kids. Let them know, yeah, you can go out there and be a survivor, and you can scrap and all that, but just know those are all because of wants.
Right.
Because what you need will always be here. So whatever you fight for, that's going to be a want. It's going to be for things that you want.
Right.
But the needs, you'll never have to want for. They'll always be here.
Yeah.
I think someone's knocking on a door over here.
Right.
I'm not sure. Hey, do you guys hear that, by the way?
Yeah, my so my situation was slightly different in the sense that my mom, we didn't. I mean, it was just my mom and I. So there was no quote unquote great sense of family. Like all my early, family was gone essentially. Like I was either hurt or disappointed by all my family, right? But my mom did give me a very strong sense of right and wrong, though, right? So she did fill me with morals and values and things of that nature.
Right.
So in that sense, I definitely got a lot of love from my mom. That was the one thing that kind of kept me, I think, from going way off the deep end, is I did have one loving parent. Now, granted, she came from a very survival mindset and parented me that way. So at times, I didn't feel the love that people are accustomed to, but I still knew the love, right? If that makes sense. In other words, it wasn't a very touchy-feely, it wasn't very let's hang out and sing Kumbaya type stuff. But the fact that she was constantly there and constantly willing to hold me accountable definitely made sure I knew that I was loved. My mom says, at least I did something right. Of course you did. You did a lot right, man. I'm very happy with who I am. So
Exactly. Are you kidding me?
But I think I am who I am because of my background, but more importantly because I also did the work when I got older to be who I am today, right? Having said that, so we talked a lot about...
Oh, no.
Well, we talked a lot about the survivalistic mindset. And it feels, the tone of the conversation, as if we're putting all the onus on that person. So I think we need to kind of balance it out a little bit by saying the person who's coming from a total loving background, I think there's dangers there too. And the danger is by not fully understanding the other person's mindset and reading into that thinking that they don't love them or that they're somehow bad or judging them and things of that nature, not having patience, not having true, genuine acceptance and love, right? Because there's a theme in today's world of we're all tolerant, we're all accepting as long as you think the same way I do, right? Well, that kind of fits in with a scenario of, well, that's not how I show love, and so you don't love me. It was, whoa, so I think if you're coming from a loving mindset, because you haven't gone through a lot of adversity or because you haven't been connected deeply to those types of individuals, because once again, if you're coming from a loving mindset, you weren't exposed to a lot of that. So you're totally unaware that those people still love and they love deeply. They just love differently because they're healing. And while they're in the healing process, they're going to show their love differently, but it doesn't mean that they love any less. It's just different. And that's where the compatibility issues start to come into play. That's where you have to learn, as a loving person coming from a loving background, you're going to have to be patient. You're going to have to be understanding. You're going to have to persevere. This is going to be your struggle here, is to learn how to work through it with this other individual as they kind of fall back on some of that baggage, right? Assuming that they're doing the work and they're skillfully handling some of their adversities. There's going to be deep ingrained instincts that person's going to have. And as a loving person, you're going to have to learn to not take those things personal. It's not an attack against you. That's just kind of where they're coming from. So you're going to have to learn how to read in between lines at times, I think. And too often that doesn't happen. Go ahead.
And in my world, you can love, like you hear people say you can love too much. It's not necessarily that you love too much, but you could be enabling. You could think you're loving, but what you're doing is you're just not letting that person, learn some skills that they absolutely will need in the future. You know what I'm saying? You can't overprotect. You can't be a helicopter parent. You know what I mean? So like, it's almost like you're saying, can a helicopter parent, be in a relationship with shake it off, kid. You're good.
Yeah, and I think they kind of can.
That would be difficult, though.
It would be difficult, but I think they can.
I think both of them would have to adjust just slightly to make that happen. But one other kind of parenting that you make me think about is can a older child be in a relationship with a younger child? And the reason I say that is because like Richard's comment here on Facebook Live, he says Louis wasn't nurtured, he was spoiled. I thought that was funny. You're right, man.
Isn't your brother think that though?
Yeah, I am spoiled. But I'm in a relationship with another spoiled brat is the thing. You know what I'm saying? So we're both the youngest children, and so there wasn't a lot expected of us. Jimmy was so good. Jimmy was the taller one, the better looking, got the straight A's, the athletic one. So Jimmy, all the onus was on him. I had no
standards.
I had no standards.
You just show up.
To be funny. All I had to do was show up. I just had to be funny and just Louis, shut up. Don't get in trouble. Just don't get in trouble. And I really did that poorly. But I had no. In other words, put it this way: if I'd come home with a C, that was cool. Jimmy got to B, and Jimmy would freak out. So like, and Dana, same thing. Like, her sister was much older, so Dana had to do nothing. She never had cleaning in the house like I did. At least have to clean. She didn't have to do anything in our house. So you got these two spoiled brat young kids being together. That means there's going to be some spoiled arguments. Like, who's going to get more spoiled in this household? So that's a question too that we'd have to throw out one day. Is how do these older children deal with a younger child? You know what I mean? How does a number one deal with a number two?
Yeah. Well, I think that no matter what it is, it all comes down to, the onus always has to fall in our own laps. Meaning, it's not anybody else's fault that I experienced what I experienced, but it is my job to overcome it. Right. It's not their job to overcome my pain and my trauma. And that's the thing that we all have to kind of keep in mind. We can't fall back on, well, I went through this. Well, we've all been through things, and it doesn't give us the right to take it out on our loved ones. Period. At the end of the day, context is cool and all, but the end result really does matter sometimes, And so, there's context to why we do things. Hurt people. We all know that. But hurt people have a duty to heal themselves. Because it's you're never going to get that connection that you're looking for when you're constantly hurting that other person, regardless of your reasoning, regardless of how justified you might feel you are. We're all searching for that connection, whether you realize it or not. Let me be the first to break it to you. That's what you're looking for. All the things that you're doing you're looking for connection, whether you are ready to admit that yet or not, whether you're really understanding the motivation there. Let me be the first to tell you it's connection that you're looking for.
That's everything,
and you're going about it probably the wrong way if you're relating to some of the things that we're telling you here. And so let this be the wake-up call to say, hey, I need to work on some things. Because if I'm going to truly connect, because I had to do it, he's had to do it, everybody I know who's successful right now as far as interpersonal skills, we've all had to do it. Because we all struggle from various, inflictions, if you will, or afflictions that are damaging our ability to connect. Some more than others. Hey, sorry, that's just the cards that you were dealt in life. That's where the realism comes in. So maybe you've got more to overcome. Get to work. At the end of the day, if you're wanting that connection, which you do, you're going to have to put the work in. And I'll tell you, as somebody who's had to put the work in, it's worth it though. I've got a genuine connection with my wife, man. Not to say that we're perfect. We struggle like everybody else. But at the end of the day, I feel a genuine connection to another human being on this planet. And that feels freaking terrific, dude. That's the kind of stuff that makes me go sit in freaking CVS line for an hour waiting for meds. Is that connection. That's what that connection does. It makes you willingly go do things that you cannot justify or explain because of a connection. The connection with my kids.
I literally drove all the way home from Orlando.
Yeah, dude, it was ridiculous.
Still in that line.
CVS, dude, hire more people, man. Seriously, hire more people. There's no reason why I should sit in an hour line. But anyways, I digress. But even the connection with my kids, like I try to have a connection with my kids, but I can't do that if I'm not skillfully handling my own flaws and my own pain. And when I skillfully handle my own pain, it allows me to have a genuine connection with my kids. Connection, but you only get that by doing the work. And so I think that the moral of today is they are compatible if you do the work. Because if you don't do the work, even if you come from a loving background, dude, you're going to have pain. We all experience it. You're going to have somebody who breaks up with you, or somebody hurts your feelings, or whatever it might be. And if you're not adept in handling that, it could destroy you. Because we've all done that, right? We've all judged somebody else's pain. We've all looked at somebody else and like, you're complaining about that? That's crazy. This happened to me. We've all had that moment. And there's, except for that one guy, right? There's that one dude out there who's got it worse than everybody. Yep. But my point is, pain is pain. Regardless of what you went through, to each individual, that might be the worst pain that they've gone through. And, they're going to have to learn how to deal with that. And so if you haven't overcome that pain, if you haven't learned how to skillfully wrap your head around it and see it from somebody else's perspective even, and compromise and work with them, good luck building connection, man. Richard made another comment. Easy does it, Trinity. You're treading extremely close to personal responsibility. That gets you canceled today. Yeah, well, that's a whole other topic. Maybe that's a Dope and Dharma topic on Friday.
I thought you ended it well, man. You should have put a stamp on that. Should have dropped the mic on that.
Well, we actually are running out of time. So, do you got any final things you just want to add to that? Anything?
Yeah, my final things are simply this. I like what you said earlier. You could be that kid that your dad never came to any of your games, and you could be at all your kids' games because your dad was never there, and that's the reason you do it. Or you could be the kid that goes to all your kids' games because your dad was always at your games, and that's how it felt, and that's what you do it. In other words, it's still your responsibility. Take responsibility, whether you come from a survivalist, a loved one, it doesn't matter. People are people. You need to learn how to accept your situation and take full advantage of whatever situations or things come your way. Bye-bye. See you. And just take advantage of it and enjoy it, but at the end of the day, we do have to take responsibility for who we are, what we are. We are not defined by our past. It's there. You can't do anything about it. You have to accept a lot of it. You also have to embrace a lot of it. Maybe you're embracing all the wrong parts of your past. Maybe what you're choosing to embrace is all the pain instead of embracing all the good. And the fact that you're alive and you didn't get electrocuted in a light socket, you didn't get hit by a car that was going across the road, then somebody taught you something, even if it was in between a lot of words and in between a lot of pain. The fact that you're still alive today means that there was also some guidance, because you didn't make it this far on your own. I don't care who you are. Nobody made it this far on their own. You're just probably looking at the wrong mentors. But there's some people out there that deserve the credit in the world, and always remember that. And if you don't like the mentors you were given at birth, there's plenty of other mentors out there that you can attach to.
Yep, find new ones. Yeah. I would second all that. Man. Like I said, we spend so much time. What is it? Being our own lawyers and everybody else's judge. And I think that to me. The reason why we're our own lawyers is because we understand the context of our life. And we spend so much time trying to get the other person to understand what we meant and what we're going through and what we decided. But we don't spend enough time trying to understand where the other person is coming from and what they've gone through and what they understand. Right. That would be called empathy. And I think that the empathetic mindset is a very difficult thing. Look it up, everybody. There's a difference between sympathy and empathy. There really is. Maybe we'll do a show on that, actually. But there's a very big difference between sympathy and empathy. And I think empathy is a lot harder than people really truly understand. And if you are somebody who's listening to this and you've gone through a difficult background, whatever you define that as, understand that it's going to be difficult for you to show empathy. So maybe look into that. Maybe challenge yourself to say, hey, am I really as empathetic as I think I am? Start to look into it, and you might be surprised in the answer. I don't know.
Maybe they'll be able to look into it if we do a show, just like you said.
Yeah, I think maybe we'll do that one next week. And then the other half of things, though, if you've gone through this wonderful background and you haven't really gone through a lot of adversity, understand that there's other people who have, and their attitudes and their mentalities are just as valuable as yours. It's a little bit different, but it's not less valuable. Theirs doesn't have less meaning to it because it didn't compare to yours, right? Maybe yours fits some sort of weird kind of gold standard, but that's a gold standard that you and people like you set. That's not the gold standard, right? Everybody's going through something, and theirs has just as much value. And just because they show you love in a different kind of way doesn't mean that they don't love you. It just means that they live differently. Maybe they love in an unhealthy way, and that's fine. They need to learn how to love in an unhealthy way. But they're not going to do that if they're constantly being yelled at and ridiculed and told that they're just yet not good enough. Because all that's going to do is revert them right back to what they know best, and that's survivability. And survivability is, okay, well, I'm going to push you away. And so if you're trying to push them away, well, then keep going, because it's going to work. So, I don't know. I think that's all I got for today. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. As always, like, subscribe, all that wonderful thing. Follow us on social media. We're getting better at putting questions up throughout the week that pertain to our shows. So by all means, do us all a favor, comment on those and share them so we can get more input. It only makes the shows better the more input we have. So right now, I think if you go to facebook.com/WPSN99, you'll see a question on there for a show that we're going to do on Friday. And it is, what is it you've learned in science that's no longer true? So by all means, if you haven't yet, go make some comments on that page, and we're going to talk about that on Friday on Dope and Dharma. But keep an eye out for those kinds of questions because they do pertain to what we're talking about, and I think it does only thing it does is enrich the content for everybody else. And on a side note, if you ever have anything that you want us to talk about or a topic that you're interested in, shoot us a message on social media, and we will make sure to put that together for you. So, anyways, that's all I got. And now that you all know, but let me find the outro here. Now that you know better, do better. Peace. Are you still here? What are you doing? I told you, go do better.